So Patrick, my dear friend, what did you think on your rewatch of Big Trouble in Little China? What did you think about it?
Yeah, I like the movie. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite John Carpenter film. I do really appreciate the commitment to the protagonist never having a goddamn clue what's going on. I think that makes for a very funny, entertaining experience, and I think Kurt Russell plays that very well. And I like the world, the look of the world, whether it's, the creatures, the monster design, which we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the eye creature. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever.
Oh, yeah, he was covered in eyes. He looked gross.
His tongue was an eye.
Yeah. His nose, the tip of his nose was an eye, too.
Yeah, and it just looked amazing, too. Like, I don't even know how they did all that in that. I mean, the other monsters, it's like, okay, it's a guy in a costume. This one, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know. I know I did see somewhere on IMDb, Screaming Mad George has a credit, and Screaming Mad George is known for weird-ass, like, horror makeup, lots of bug stuff like he did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I want to say he had a different credit than I thought he would have on this movie. He wasn't under, like, makeup. I don't even think he was under special effects. I think he was under visual effects, which is not the department that I would associate him with, but maybe this is one of his first movies or something. Maybe that's where he started. But Screaming Mad George, another Asian American given a job by this film, just like all these Gerald Nakamura, Al Leong, all these guys.
Now, I mean, that eye creature could have been him, because I don't think it was like an actual physical effect. I think it was all done.
I know, it is.
Like
it is. No, it's not a CG. Although this, I want to say this, wasn't this ILM or something like that? They had...
oh, I don't know.
There was like I want to say there was a big production company in the visual effects. Like, it was more so than I would have thought, but I could be wrong. Visual effects, okay, it was Richard Edlund, who that's a name I've come across before. Let me look up what he did. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Poltergeist. Yeah, okay, so it's a big name doing the visual effects.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think I had that written down, actually.
Yeah, big visual effects on Big Trouble in Little China, Screaming Mad George. It's just a little weird. But anyways, I've mentioned him a couple times on this podcast before. Born in Japan, incredible makeup effects artist. I would love to know what he specifically did in this movie, because I'm just curious, because he's like the master of like weird, surreal, like almost Dali-inspired, like melting creatures and stuff like that. He does that so well, and one of like 5 people involved in Freddy Krueger's death at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street 4. That was like an Avengers of like big horror makeup effects artists like working on that, because it was such a complicated effect. He was one of those. And yeah, I love Screaming Mad George. I love that he had a role in this, even though I'm not really sure what that role was. But no, I like the movie. It's not my favorite thing, but I do love the look of the world with the creatures, the sets. I think that it's a good cast. Even I love the dude who plays Egg Shen, Victor Wong. I think he's great. James Hong, I think, does a really great job of, like, obviously James Hong. James Hong, classic character actor. This is one of the few movies I've seen him in where he's like really has like a big role, right? Because he's always just like a minor guy. Like, I think he's in Wayne's World
he's always
2.
like vendor or convenience store
yeah.
guy, or
He's the thing I remember him best for. He's the
Seinfeld.
Yeah, Seinfeld, the Chinese restaurant episode. He's the guy who is a Cartwright for Cartwright. He's that guy.
That's one of my favorite jokes in that show. Yeah, I love this movie so much, and again, it's just such a fun world to throw yourself into for an hour and 40 minutes. It's interesting, it's funny. We didn't really talk about the comedy in it that much, but there's a lot of like funny lines or like throwaway lines or scenes.
Well, for me, most of the comedy just comes from the lead character just being this kind of bumbling idiot. Like, I think that the comedy mostly comes from kind of a fish out of water main character, at least for me. I know there's like more on the nose funny stuff, like you mentioned, the moment where he knocks himself out by shooting, the ceiling and some rocks fall on him. There's like other bits like that.
I don't want to call him a cute character, but he was at the end of it. He was this cute, funny, quirky, lovable buffoon.
He's constantly kind of poking holes in like the dramatic situations of the movie, if you will, because they have that scene where they're in the wheelchairs and they're talking to Lo Pan, and Lo Pan is describing his he needs to marry someone with green eyes or something, and he's like, boy, there's millions of people out there with green eyes. You haven't been looking too hard. You've been on this earth how long? And like he's doing those kind of things, and that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I just think it's a great movie, and it saddens me a bit to know that it didn't do that well in theaters, but I'm kind of glad it didn't, because I think like the last time before the other day that I watched this movie was in theaters. Cineplex had like a classic movie night or something, so me and a friend of mine went to go see it, and there was only like 5 other people in the theater. But it was great. I got to see Big Trouble in Little China on screen, on this big theater screen, and it was just amazing. It was a fun experience, and yeah, it's just sad that this movie's kind of fallen to the wayside, really.
But it hasn't, though. It fell to the wayside, but it's been picked up, and this is a, like you were saying, this is a cult classic. This is, for John Carpenter, who obviously had a very big career. Like I said, a lot of his best movies were not that successful when they came out, but this is considered a top 5 John Carpenter movie. I think you said it's your favorite. It's not mine. It's probably my 5th or 6th favorite, because I'm one of the few who's seen Elvis, and I think Elvis is amazing. His TV movie with Kurt Russell. It's a very, very good movie, actually. But The Thing and Halloween I love, and then I love Starman. I think Starman is kind of underrated.
Starman's good, yeah.
Starman is like the opposite of all other John Carpenter movies, where it did well when it came out, and I feel like nobody talks about it now. It's like, whereas like The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, I don't think They Live was even that successful when they came out, and those are movies that are really talked about and hyped up today, and I feel like Starman is every bit as good as those. Maybe not as good as The Thing, but it's an excellent movie, and just it's fallen off people's radar. It's fallen to the wayside. Starman has. This movie hasn't.
Okay, well there you go, folks. It hasn't fallen off to the wayside, so go out and watch it if you haven't seen it, because it's fantastic. I recommend this movie to everybody all the time. I really do. It's
a fun movie. I think it's got a lot to offer. You don't have to be into like 80s action to really enjoy the movie, because it's not like 80s was the decade of like big shoot 'em up and like Arnold and Stallone and all these like ripped people. It's not that kind of action, and it's certainly a lot sillier.
Also, I want to talk real quickly. The score for this movie is pretty awesome. It's like synth 80s with like
well, it's the classic Carpenter, Alan Howarth, or Howarth, however you pronounce that name, score, because originally Carpenter did the scores by himself, and then at some point he started collaborating with this guy. They might have collaborated on Halloween 2. I can't remember if that's just Carpenter. But Halloween 3 is both of them. This is both of them.
Yeah, and they did like, I think almost every Halloween. Well, every Halloween.
No. You're just flat out wrong.
No, who was it? Well, hold on, I looked it up.
Oh, well, Halloween 4 is just Howarth. It's no John Carpenter.
Yeah, you're right. That's
Halloween
right.
5, I don't know. Halloween 6, I want to say, barely even uses the... Well, there's also famously 2 widely different edits of Halloween 6, so maybe one of them uses classic Carpenter music, one of them doesn't. And then the recent ones, it's Carpenter, but no Howarth. Carpenter works with one of his sons, or maybe his only son, I don't know.
Oh.
And then also... some guy Davies, who's the son of one of the Kinks. I don't know if it's Ray or Dave.